Hi, AP Bio students. This is our kickoff guide here to taking the 2020 AP Bio exam. Um, Obviously, the exam is going to be a little different this year, but this video is going to walk you through what to expect on the exam, and let's get to it. Okay, first of all, I'm going to talk about the structure of the AP Bio test. Second topic in this video is going to be things that the test will actually cover. Third, we're looking at how to take the test. It's a little bit like how the SAT works, or I don't know, any standardized test. That there's a technique to taking the test, and if you know the technique, that will make taking the test much easier. And then finally, the last topic I'm going to cover in this video is where to get practice materials. I put timestamps on these four topics so that you can just fast forward the YouTube video to the part that actually interests you, because I doubt you want to hear me talk through this entire video. So here we go. Structure of the test is what we're going to start with. First of all, this year there are no multiple choice questions. Usually there would be a section of 90 multiple choice questions. They just totally cut that whole part out. There are only essay free response questions on the AP test, and there's only going to be two of them. So it's going to be an essay test with exactly two questions on it, which is sort of good news, but also a little bit intimidating. You're going to take the test at home, and they assure me that you could use any internet capable device. I would suggest that you probably use a laptop. It sounds like you're going to be typing essay answers. I don't know. To me, typing fast on a phone doesn't sound like it would work out very well. Scott wants to say hi. There's Scott the dog. I had to come in my bedroom to escape my children. Anyway, here we go. Here. Let's see here. Here are the test dates and times. It's going to be Monday, May 18th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Two free response questions, like I said, when you look at that question column there. Timing, it's going to be 25 minutes for the first one and 15 minutes for the second one. And it is my understanding that the timing, it's not timed on the application that you're taking the test through. You have to keep time for yourself. So if they're suggesting that the first question take you 25 minutes, the second question take you 15 minutes, and then allow yourself additional uploading time of 5 minutes for each question. The scoring percentage of the first question is going to be worth 65% of your AP Bio test score, and the second question is going to be worth 35% of your grade. Question descriptions, we're going to get into detail there in a minute on what those are, but you can look on this chart here, and that goes through exactly what the tests are constructed like. Okay, question one, here we go. Present students with an authentic scenario accompanied by data and a table or graph. This question assesses students' ability to do the following. So basically what they're saying is they're going to tell you about a lab or a scientific experiment. And then they're going to have you describe the biological concept, processes, or models applied in the context, identify and justify experimental design procedures, analyze data, make justifications and predictions. What they're really trying to see here with question number one is, do you understand the scientific method? Really, do you understand how the scientific method works in a real live laboratory environment? That's the main thing that they're after with question one. To me, this is the easier of the two questions. Because literally, if you understand scientific method that every teacher has gone over with you since like every science class you've ever taken, that you make a hypothesis, you design an experiment to test the hypothesis, and then you analyze data to form a conclusion. If you know that general layout, you can probably construct a response to the first type of free response question here. The second type of free response question, to me, gets a little bit more complicated for a couple different reasons. So question two presents a student with an authentic scenario describing a biological phenomenon with a disruption. So they've done an experiment but changed something. This question assesses the student's ability to do the following. Look at part A and part B. It says part A, describe biological concepts or processes in applied context. And then part B says explain biological concepts or processes in applied context. To me, part A and part B, those say the same thing. So why are they telling me two different things? That's because in AP land, according to College Board, the word describe and the word explain mean two different things. So that's one of these little word games you have to be familiar with before you take this test. Describe means just the facts. So this would be like if you were to explain all the steps of the Kelvin cycle when you were doing photosynthesis. like explain all the steps of like really get into step by step how the Kelvin cycle works to produce glucose. Okay. Um, every nitty gritty detail. If you got like every single carbon intermediate in there, you might get a 5 on the exam. By the way, a 3 is a really good score. It's a five point scale. Okay, people who get 5s might actually go through and describe every single carbon intermediate. But even if you did what we did in class and went through it, that's probably good for a 4. If you actually like understood what went in, what came out, and how the Kelvin cycle works, boom, great, you've described it. If you explain it, AP thinks that describe differs from explain, and that explaining would be you can take a complicated concept and boil it down into simpler terms. So put things into your own words. It's kind of a subtle difference between describing and explaining, but to me, explaining would be more important and would have more emphasis. Um, I don't know. And then there's other words that AP likes to use, things like describe, discuss, explain, compare, contrast. You should know what those mean in the context of an AP test before you walk into the AP test. And I'll give you some resources that go through some of the vocabulary of interpreting what the question is actually asking you to do, so that when you run into words like contrast, like what exactly are they expecting when they say contrast two things? That's an important study tactic. Okay, second thing that I was going to cover in this video. Um, what the test is actually going to cover. Here's what the class covers. That's what this chart is showing you right now, is all the units that this class was supposed to cover. You may have noticed that we chopped the end off of the year, and AP understands this, and so they have chopped the end off the test. So the test is not going to cover the whole class. Instead, it's going to cover everything except Units 7 and 8, which is right about where we got to. We've covered everything Units 1 through 6. We even covered ecology, and they chopped it off the test. We didn't get to natural selection, and they're going to cut that off the test. So 7 and 8 are gone, and you're only responsible for those 6 units. What are in those 6 units? Well, I'm glad you asked. You're going to recognize a lot of the stuff you see in the units that will be covered. So here's how I break down my studying time. Each week, I might tackle one of these 6 units, because we've got a little over a month before the test. Let's see, it's the 18th. You've got about exactly a month to get ready for this test. So maybe you do 1 or 2 of these units per week and really start diving in and studying what is on these lists for these units, 1 or 2 per week, so that you'll be ready to walk into the exam. The first one is chemistry of life, all the way back to the beginning of the year. If you remember, like properties of water and all that carbon chemistry stuff we did, and monomers and polymers, and how all of that chemistry works. Structural differences between DNA and RNA. We have covered all of that this year. It's in your notes. It's in Campbell Biology. That I think you're pretty well set up for that. Unit 2, cell structure and function. Holy cow, there's a lot of stuff with cell structure and function. First of all, there are just a lot of cell structures. The basic pieces, parts of cells. We spent a lot of time on that. But then also things like osmosis, diffusion, concentration gradients. What else is in here? Surface area to volume ratio and what it means, why cells are small. All of those kind of concepts are in there. The list is big for this one. And the majority of the year, we talked mostly about cells and cell chemistry, so I think you're pretty well set up for this one. Unit 3 is cell energetics. This is photosynthesis and respiration. It was not fun. You've got lots of notes on this. I would definitely take some time to review that. Unit 4, cell communications and cell cycle. We did a whole cell cycle unit. They seem to be pushing, all of the prep material I've been looking through so far seems to really be pushing at a transduction pathway, signal transduction pathways. Remember that's from when a cell gets a signal from the outside world, like a hormone molecule shows up, and a receptor on the cell's surface grabs that hormone, and then it changes its shape, and that triggers the activity of a protein inside the cell, and that protein's change triggers another protein, et cetera, all the way down to installing a transcription factor and initiating transcription translation, so the cell produces a protein to respond to its environment. I think there's going to be one of your questions that deals with that situation. So I would really spend some extra time maybe with Unit 4. I just have a suspicion that they're going to do a signal transduction pathway question on your exam. I would also be surprised if they didn't tie this in with um, COVID-19. I think they will definitely have a coronavirus question on the AP Bio exam. I just can't imagine constructing an exam at this time and for AP Bio students and not having a question about the biggest biology issue of this decade. So I might brush up on how viruses work and how they do their thing. Um, Heredity, we left off the year really talking about heredity, so basic Punnett squares and all that stuff about epigenetics and how DNA is read. That's going to be important. And then finally, the last part is where we really like the year cut off at gene expression regulation. And we were talking about pre-transcriptional, transcriptional, post-transcriptional gene expression regulation. I would make sure that I know how all of that stuff works. I will post the review video for that last unit that we were working on before we left school. That will be helpful to go over Unit 6. I would make sure that I understand how the entire transcription complex works so that you have the understanding what those promoter and enhancer regions do before genes, and understand what a general transcription factor is and what a specific transcription factor is, what an activator is, all of those parts. When we talked about like how transcription kind of works like launching a rocket and you have to build the launch pad first, that whole analogy is kind of an important thing to have strung together correctly in your head before you take the test, and that's all Unit 6 stuff. Okay, so that's specifically what will be on the test. Now we're talking about the mechanics of actually taking the test. So the test is going to happen on Monday, May 18th at 2 o'clock. You'll be able to take the test on any internet-capable device, they tell me. I would suggest using laptops. I've already been over that. Specifics were emailed to you by Miss Sullivan. She has a whole PowerPoint slideshow thing on what to expect when you go to take this thing. I will make sure that I post that on the Schoology page and below this video. Keep an eye on the Schoology page. That's where I'm going to start putting up all of your review materials that I think you should be using over the next few weeks. Her presentation looks something like this. If you find a PowerPoint presentation that looks like this on the front, that's the one that Ms. Sullivan sent you that has all the information on how to take your 2020 AP exams, not just the bio exam, but all of them. One thing that I noticed out of her slideshow that I thought I would bring your attention to as well as she did is that don't cheat. They are really serious about not cheating, especially that quote she's got there in her first bullet point. Each student that plans to cheat will be reported to every college and university to which they reported PSAT, SAT, and AP scores. Dang. I don't know. They're really serious about cheating. I don't know how they would catch you, but I wouldn't risk it. I seriously think you probably really should not cheat on this test or take it in a group setting or something. That would be a bad idea. Let's see here. Where to get practice material? I would start by looking on the College Board's website. And that's apcentral.collegeboard.org. And then you're going to click on the tab that you can find somewhere that says AP Bio. And then what you're looking for is released free response questions, which they have those on their website. A lot of times they'll have the question, they'll have the answers, and then they'll have a scoring rubric of how they scored those free response questions. You're going to find that the free response questions year to year are similar in a lot of ways. And if you do more practice free response questions, you're going to do better on this test, especially since the test is just 2 free response questions. I would really practice a lot of those free response questions and then compare your answers to scoring rubrics. Yeah, that's the page you're looking for on the AP Bio website. See how they've got these free response questions released, and then they've got scoring guidelines, and then they've got sample responses from a whole bunch of ways that people responded and what kind of scores they got. So those are really helpful to look through. Try to find that page on AP Bio website. Also, I said it in class and I'll say it again, I would buy a test prep book if you haven't done so already. I think the test prep books are very handy. I'm going to go sneak into the high school and go get my old test prep books, and I'll be pushing out material to you from them. But it might not be a bad idea for you to buy your own. I like Kaplan brand, but it doesn't really matter. All of the test prep, the major test prep companies all put out an AP Bio test prep book, and they're all pretty good. Again, it's mostly just seeing those sample questions and then answering them. That's going to be most valuable in boosting your score. So I hope this was helpful. I haven't forgot about you guys. I sincerely miss school, which is I never thought I would say that. I'm sad not to be at work, but I'm sad not to be at work. And I really think that the end of your senior year is a special time, and I wish I was there with you guys. I really do. Hang in there and take care of yourselves and take care of your families. And hope you do well in the test. And I'll be in communication with you. So keep your eyes on your email. Talk to you later.